What's up everyone? In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the optimal trade entry, the OTE. It is an ICT concept using the Fibonacci tool. It's a fantastic tool. I'm going to show you guys how to use it, how to find good entries with it, and also my settings on TradingView. So let's get into it. The optimal trade entry has to be one of my favorite trade setups, and the reason for that is because it requires patience and it requires us to have that initial move. And a lot of times, like you've heard in the market before, when we have one leg, there is usually a pullback followed by another leg, and this is that pullback and entry. So what we look for is we look that we are creating a lower high on this 5-minute chart, would also be a lower high on the 15 and 30 minute, and we want to see if we could sweep these lows down here and make some lower lows. So we're going to let it play out. This is crude oil on the 5-minute chart, and boom, just like that, we have a strong impulse move lower, and as we see, we have a ton of fair value gaps, right? So there's a lot of imbalance in the market, so I'm expecting the market to pull back at some point. So the first thing we do is we wait for a pullback to set our Fibonacci. We can't just put our Fib anywhere. We have to wait for that pullback so we know where that first leg brought us. So now that we see our pullback, we're able to place our Fibonacci tool from the start of the move to the bottom of the move, and that gives us our 61 to 78% zone. Now this zone could be added with other confirmations like a fair value gap, like a breaker block, and that sort of helps us get a more high probability setup. So now that we have our setup, we could look to take our entry. So now I see a 5-minute fair value gap right here. That will be this blue zone. I also see a breaker block, which is this one right here, which will be this light blue zone. Now I am looking at this and I'm saying, where am I going to enter? Well, because we have our optimal trade entry at 61%, we have our 78%, both of these are in the fair value gap. I'm going to look to see for a fast rejection or fast reaction off of this fair value gap, and I want sellers to step in. Now the question remains of where do I find my take profit? Well, we could have a few targets when we're trading with the optimal trade entry. We could target a new low if we're going for a short position, or we could also use the -50 and -61% to give us some extended and more measured move of a target, which gives us a really nice risk to reward on our trade, almost a 7-to-1 risk to reward. So we're going to let it play out. We're going to see how we react off of that zone. We see we get a few touches each time we come into this zone right near that 61%. We react, we reject. This is looking good in our favor. We let it play out and we see how we react off of our zones and areas of interest. Another strong move lower, and we just hit all of our targets. So it was a great trade, really high probability because we have the fair value gap and breaker block overlapping within that optimal trade entry. And that's exactly how we have to trade this, guys. We want to trade with the trend, the lower highs, the lower lows. We want to go short on that fib retracement with that optimal trade entry and with these other forms of confirmation. Now, as for the settings, a lot of it is up to you. We don't really need the trend line. That's simply a trend line between the highs and the lows of the initial move, so we don't need that on the chart. Extend lines to the right is just to sort of clean up the chart as well. Me personally, I do like to keep extend lines right. That way you can keep an eye on it with price action. The 61 and the 78%, those are our key levels. Those are the areas of interest or optimal trade entry. So that's where we want to see if we could get some type of fair value gap, breaker block, or some type of confirmation on top of the optimal trade entry. As for our targets, the -50 and -61% have been working phenomenally for me, and that's why I wanted to put this video out as well because of how great it's been. But as for yourself, you might want to test things out on the -78 and the -100, right? So it all depends on our strategy, our entries, and how the market is moving. As for background, the background is simply just a shaded area in our Fibonacci tool. I like to keep this off. I don't need the whole area shaded. The reverse button is for if you put the Fibonacci tool on backwards, instead of deleting it and putting it back on, you could simply hit reverse. Prices, we don't really need our prices on the screen. The lines and levels show us exactly where they are. And levels, you could have it as values or percent. I hope you guys learned something. Hit that like and subscribe button. Join our community at bullishbears.com. Take care, happy trading, and keep on learning.